Good morning, I am Joji and today is Friday, July 13th, very early in the morning. Well, it's not that early, it's 10 a.m. but I've been trying to record since I woke up because today, in a couple of hours, we are going to leave for our ski trip together with my family. As soon as my kids come out from school, we are just grabbing the car and driving for 17 hours to the mountains, and I wanted to record one last journal before leaving, and to leave you guys with something to watch while I'm away. When I'm in the mountains, I don't have good internet reception on my phone, and the places we stay at, they don't have good Wi-Fi service either. It's like apparently phone companies and internet companies have a really hard time getting service up there, so everything is a bit patchy. I am able to keep up with Instagram and social media, but I won't be able to record from the mountains, so I wanted to record this last journal before leaving. It's been a week since I last chatted with you, and it's been a really good week. I made a lot of progress with many things, and yes, first of all, I wanted to thank you for leaving feedback on my questions. It's so great to read everyone's comments and suggestions and opinions. Last week I asked you whether you'd be interested in a sock knit along, and many of you said yes, so with this video I give an official start to our sock knit along. And the second question was whether you would be interested in me designing with bulky or chunky weight yarn, and you all were so sweet, and many of you commented on the sweater that I was wearing during journal number 17. So I have decided to try to write that pattern down. It will be at least a better interpretation of what I made, and after I recorded and you started sending comments, I asked my husband to take some photos of the sweater so that even if I'm wearing it a lot, I don't get it ruined, and I can use those photos for the pattern. So again, I think that for me, my favorite part about recording the journal is thinking that there's someone out there watching it and there's an interaction, and it doesn't feel one-sided at all when I record. I always think that there's someone listening to me and thinking about what I say. So whenever you leave a comment on a video, it actually reinforces that feeling, and it just makes it more wonderful. To give you an example, today I was getting ready to journal. I just came out of the shower. I just dried my bangs, and then as I was coming here to my desk, I thought, oh, I forgot to put on some perfume, as if someone is really next to me and can smell my perfume. So I thought it was really funny because I do feel like I'm getting ready to talk to a lot of people that are here with me. So thank you for leaving comments on the videos or Instagram. That really, really makes my week and makes me want to come back really soon. So yeah, so let's start talking about our sock knit along. I am not good at like setting rules or forms or guidelines for knit alongs, so I just thought we could. I'm opening a thread this moment on Ravelry, so by the time the video uploads to YouTube, there will be a thread in my Ravelry group. My Ravelry group is called Designs by Joji, And yes, so we can start now. Let's start. And if you finish a pair of socks out of one of my designs within 4 weeks, then you are eligible to. If you finish just one sock, you don't have to finish a pair because it's not going to be a very long time. So in 4 weeks, if you finish just one sock of the pair, and if you post it to the Ravelry thread, then you're eligible to win a prize that I'm going to choose soon. I'm going to open 2 threads, so one of them is going to be for conversation. I will try to be there every day, but my internet will be a bit unstable during the first week. As soon as I come home, I will be there a lot more. So one is going to be there for chat and support and to ask questions. And I am very fortunate. I've had my Ravelry group for many years, and we've never had any problems. And all the people who've always hang out in my group, they are really amazing. I'm so lucky that people who need my patterns apparently are super eager to help others. So if you have a question about a sock pattern, or if this is your first sock that you've ever knit, then pop over to that thread and ask the question. And even if I'm not there to reply it immediately, I'm sure that there will be tons of people super happy to help and to chat and to engage in conversation. I just love knit-alongs for that. And what else? So any of my sock patterns are eligible for this knit-along. I haven't checked. I think I have 4, but I will post a link to all of my sock patterns in the first post, so you can choose. And yes, so what am I going to knit with you? I have a pair of socks that I've been showing you. They are my Scrappy Socks, but I also want to work from one of my patterns. So I had this idea. I hope you like it. So my latest pattern are the Indigo Leaves Socks, and they are designed for DK weight yarn. So for my size I used 48 stitches, but I thought, do you remember this yarn from Mr.B? It was a gift that I received when I was in Bath, and it's from the company Bird Street UK. And I said that I wanted to make a pair of socks for me, because I tend to give away a lot of the socks that I knit. And I really want to use this yarn. This is fingering weight yarn, and the pattern is not written for fingering weight yarn. It's written for DK, which is a lot thicker or heavier. So I thought that while I'm knitting with you, I'm going to post in the forum and perhaps in my project page the modifications I will be making to use this yarn and perhaps 60 stitches to make the Indigo Leaves Socks. Did it make sense? So I'm going to use the Indigo Leaves pattern, but I'm going to tweak it or modify it for fingering weight yarn. I'm going to wind this yarn today after I record this video, and I think this is going to be one of my car knitting projects. So I will be posting to Instagram and to my project page and to the forum how many stitches I'm using, and then how many stitches I need before I start the chart and after I end the chart. So if any of you want to do that with me, if any of you want to grab the Indigo Leaves pattern and follow my modifications to use a skein of fingering weight yarn, then you're welcome to knit along with me, and I will try to finish that first sock within 4 weeks. So why 4 weeks? Let's look at the calendar. So today is Friday 13th, and I'm thinking of, 1, 2, 3, of finishing this knit along on August 10. So that gives us 4 weeks to finish at least one sock of the pair, because every year in September I have my annual fall knit along. That's a big knit along. We knit all kinds of patterns. We have categories for sweaters, accessories, and shawls and hats and stuff. We have big prizes. We have sponsors, and it's usually a 3-month long knit along that takes all of my time and my moderator's time too. So if we are going to have a sock knit along separate from that, then I thought it would be better to finish it a few days before the fall knit along starts, so that they don't get mixed up and I can start getting the fall knit along threads ready for whenever that starts. So having said that, today is the kickoff day for our sock knit along. You can start whenever you want, and the end date is going to be August 10. And because we have 4 weeks to knit just one sock, this is going to be only new projects eligible for this knit along. I'm not going to check whether it's a new or an old work in progress, but I ask you to be fair with others, and if you want to win the prize, just make sure that it's a new project. And I'm sure going to show you next week when I come back what yarn I have picked for that prize. Anyway, about the yarn that I'm going to use, it's called Superwash Merino Nylon with Stellina, and it's called the base is called La Rue, as in the street in French, Larue, and the colorway is called Just Rust by Mr.B. So this is my future project. Then works in progress. As you can see, I have my Elton cardigan here. My Elton cardigan grew a lot. Guys, I finished my work knitting, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday. I finished my work knitting, and I was completely stuck knitting on that. I couldn't make any progress on that or anything else, because I you know how I've been feeling about deadlines and commitments, and I tend to push my progress towards the deadline, which is very unlike me. What I mean is that usually I finish things a lot in advance. I don't like to come close to a deadline. If my deadline for something is July 13th, then I definitely would finish stuff in June, for sure. But this year I feel like a lot of things, I've been changing a lot of things about the way I work, about the way I collaborate, about the trips I make, and I've been feeling a lot more anxious about deadlines, and it's like that anxiety doesn't help me to finish these designs in advance. I just come very close to my deadlines. So anyway, I made the deadline and it's done. It came out wonderful. I cannot tell you about this design, but it came out even better than I was hoping, which is a huge reward because it took me a lot of effort to finish this by the deadline. And yes, so I felt very liberated. The first thing I grabbed is my Elton cardigan, which is here. As you can see, it grew quite a bit. I am more in love with the fabric now than I was before, and I was very much in love with this already. But it looks like one of those fabrics that has like tulle and velvet. I don't know what the name for that is, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It's like, it's not an embroidered tulle, it's like a tulle and velvet stripy thing. I'm really liking this combination. I'm very happy I came up with this plan for this yarn. So for those of you joining me today for the first time, in case you haven't seen my Elton Cardigan before, it is a boxy cardigan. I'm working it from the top down like this. It has a crew neckline like this, and let's see, it will have a button band, so it curls a little bit right now because it doesn't have a button band or a neckline, but it should be okay with the button band, and of course you can just button it down there. And it has a drop shoulder construction. This is the armhole, and I'm using two yarns from the same company. This is mohair silk and merino single by Ivanne S in their yellow brick road, in their yellow brick road colorway. And that's why I named my design Elton, because Elton John is the author of the Yellow Brick Road song, one of my favorite songs. And I'm working it on straight needles because that's how I usually knit when I knit back and forth. It's a lot of stitches right now on the needle, but it's making good progress. It's just a tiny gauge, so I'm not that fast. I think I will soon, if not next, start the ribbing, because I don't want this cardigan to be very long. The inspiration for this cardigan came because I have been sewing some clothes for myself lately, and I've been very interested in sewing myself some dresses, and I thought that it would be good to have a light boxy cardigan to wear on top of dresses, and I don't want it to be too long so that it still shows some shape. I feel like if it's too long and then I have a flowy dress underneath, it's just not very flattering for some reason. I think I prefer, when I'm wearing something boxy on top and boxy underneath, I think I prefer something not cropped but not long either. So I think I'm ready for my bottom ribbing, and then I just need to pick up the sleeves and knit tubes. They don't have any sleeve shaping here at the shoulder because it's a drop shoulder, so basically my sleeves come all the way down to my arm here, and therefore I don't need to shape the shoulders. The shoulders are shaped here with the sweater. And I'm using a lot less yarn than I thought I would. So as you can see, I'm almost done with the body, and I don't need a lot more yarn because the sleeves won't be too big. I have just started my second skein of the single ply, and I still have this much of the mohair. I have the suspicion that I won't need to break into my second skein. So the good news is that this sweater, even if it's boxy and loose fitting, might only take me 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn and 1 skein of mohair. And then I can have another skein of mohair for another project. So yeah, that's my Elton cardigan. And then I also have, sorry, let me grab a drink. I also have my Scrappy Socks that I finished the first one off, and I only added oops, I dropped my stitches. Hold on. Let me put them back on the needle. There were a lot of stitches that I dropped. Okay, there we go. So I only added the second color, so I didn't make a lot of progress on this, and yes, so I still have to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. I still have a long way to go with this, and I will be starting a second pair of socks, so this might not get a lot of work on this week, but I've been working on them. I put them in my purse and I carry them around, and I basically don't need at all with them. And then my other work in progress, I cannot show you because it's a design for interpretations that I'm working on, and I give you hints sometimes, but I don't want to show it to you because I already started the color work part, and I kind of want to keep that a surprise for when we publish the book. So if you never heard of interpretations, every year I get together with my friend Vera Valimäki, who lives in Finland. She's of course Finnish. We are best friends, and we publish a book together. We write a book together every year, and we get together to photo shoot these designs. Yes, we put them together as interpretations. This year we're working on Interpretations Volume 6, and it will be photographed in November, and the book will come out next year, 2019, probably around March, but I'm not 100% sure. So each of us each of us designs 6 patterns for the book, so the book contains 12 patterns. I've been working on several samples for the book. This is my 5th design for it, and I'm making a color work yoke sweater. And I just wanted to show you the yarn again, because I finally started my sample and I'm loving this yarn. This is Barrett Wool Company. I first heard of this yarn perhaps over a year ago or 2, perhaps 2 years ago, and this company is owned by Susan B. Anderson, and I met Susan. We were teaching together at an event, and Susan had some of her samples made out of this yarn, of course, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And this yarn is not always available. It's a small batch yarn, so I got into their newsletter to know when they had it available so that I could order it for my book sample. So it's called Wisconsin Woolen Span, and it's just that, a beautiful, lofty, airy woolen span. I just love it. It's really great. If you guys can get your hands, if you can buy some of these. I know I shouldn't say this because then there won't be any more available, but it's just too great not to share. This is a really good yarn. You should try to buy at least one skein. Trust me. So this is worsted weight yarn, 250 yards in 100 grams, and the colorway is called Pebble. So I just wanted to say, this is 100 grams skein, but it feels really big, and it feels like the yarn is going a really long way because it's so lofty. My gauge is 18 stitches to 4 inches, so I feel like you can get a lot of fabric out of one skein of yarn. I still haven't finished my first skein. I cannot guarantee that, but it definitely feels like you get a lot out of one skein. This colorway is Pebble. This is my main color, and then I am using the natural to do my drawings, my motifs, and this is called Birch. I also wanted to talk about how I design, because I'm not going to be teaching these classes a lot more, so I thought I'd share with you some of the things that I use for my design work. So these are the needles that I usually use when I knit with circular needles, and whenever I travel, like today I'm getting ready to travel and work at the same time. I love this set because it's very compact and it takes no space. These are the Hayas interchangeable needles. I haven't tried the Taigos. I think they also come in a very compact set, but these are really great, so I don't feel like I need to try anything else. I don't like to buy tools whenever things work for me. I have also a set of Knit Pro or Knit Picks that I really like and I use all the time. It's this kind of needle and I use them all the time. But the only con that I find is that if I don't use the key to really lock them, they unscrew sometimes. And I don't feel like that happens so much with the Hayas. Sorry, I'm gonna put my phone somewhere else. There we go. And also let's see if it's here. The bag where I keep those needles together, it's really heavy because I have so many of them. This is a needle keeper by Pink Hazel. And I have all of these. That was so unintelligent. Let's forget about that. I'm gonna pick them up later. Anyway, I keep my needles here and they fall, as you can see, if you don't open it correctly. In my defense, I usually open this on a table. But this is where I keep all my Knit Pro needles and cables, and it's just a lot of stuff. So I don't tend to bring my needles, my Knit Pro needles with me because they fall and I lose them. So this is what I bring instead. It has a handy cover so that you don't do that by mistake. And first I had bought the red set. So I think the red set is the Haya Sharps. And I hated them. I really hated them because they were sharp. And I kept stabbing my own fingers with them and it hurts because of the way I knit, I suppose. And it really hurt. I didn't want to use these needles because it's like, how do you call that? Negative conditioning? When you keep punishing someone for an action and then that person instinctively doesn't want to do that action anymore. It's like negative programming. I think it was negative conditioning. Anyway, I didn't want to use my needles. Fortunately, I found a knitter here, Pau, in Argentina. She's a friend of mine and she really wanted that set. She preferred the lace tips, the sharp tips, so I destashed mine and with that money I could by my blue set, which is the regular set. They are quite sharp anyway compared to my finger. I still stab myself sometimes, but not so much. And of course, it could be due to stupidity or lack of ability using my needles, but I'm much happier with this set. So that's what I bring with me. And then this is my notions pouch. In my notions pouch I have darning needles, tape measure, Wiksten's tape measure. I have a big stitch marker, one of those cut thingies. It's big enough to fit in my pinky finger, so it's too big for regular kind of knitting. I don't find it very comfortable, but I have it just in case. You never know if you're going to knit with bulky yarn sometime. I have a pair of scissors. If I'm traveling by plane, I have a different pouch. So these scissors, I never try to put these through security. And then I have this thing with a pen, a highlighter, a red pen, and pencil, and an eraser, and a Sharpie. And then in my pocket I keep my stitch markers. There you go. They're just loose there in my pocket. So I don't have a lot going on. I have my needles and my notions pouch, and this is how I usually design. I have notebooks everywhere. This is a very old one, and as you can see, I keep notes of all my design work here, and sketches, and let's see what this is, to show you how I usually write my designs, something that you might know. These are very old designs. I don't know if any of you knows. Okay, so let's see this design. It says Sandara's Silver Shawl. It was a design that I designed. It was a shawl that I designed for a collaboration together with Sandara Yarns, and it's called Inner Peace. That was the final name of the design. And as you can see, I write down my gauge, my needles. Then I might add measurements. I draw a sketch of what I have in mind. Sometimes it doesn't end up looking exactly like that. I added a section to the initial sketch, and then I write instructions as if I was the knitter reading from those instructions. So I even add notes like see glossary, so that when I move these notes to my computer, I remember that I have to do that. So I don't take anything for granted when I design. This is a newer one. I have a ton of those. This is instructions for Elton Cardigan. This is a notebook that my friend Heli gifted me. I have a lot of Marimekko notebooks because my Finnish friends supply me with those, and I use them all. But as you can see, I start with 2.75 millimeter needles cast on So I write my instructions on paper as I go, and so I don't need to bring my computer with me, or I don't take notes on my phone. I just take notes on paper of everything I make. I'm starting a new notebook for this trip because my friend Tina gave me another Marimekko notebook, and I like this one because I'm doing color work, so I could trace. I just designed these motifs that I'm trying for my color work tunic, and I have my yarn information here. I have more things that I'm trying out, and I have some directions here on how to start. And yes, so I'm taking this on the car, and I'm just taking notes of what I'm doing with my calculator and stuff on the car. And then I have also this beautiful, I use this sometimes when I have to submit to a magazine. This is a notebook that my friend Anke gifted me, and I love it because it's many of you might know this, is the Pocket Fashion Sketch Pad, and it comes with these blank ladies, nude ladies that I can draw my ideas on. So if I want to submit a design to a magazine, I usually have to send them a sketch of what I am thinking of, and oftentimes it's not easy for me to draw the human figure in a very flattering way. So, for example, this is something that I might have sent to a magazine. So this way they can see the movement. There's a front view and a back view. So yeah, so that's great. I use this only when I have to submit to a magazine. I don't draw my sketches, my ideas. I don't draw them like that. For me, they don't need to be so fancy. If I want to take note of something that I want to design for myself, I usually do something more like this. As you can see, I don't have a fashion background. I just understand what I want to make, and that's it. So I thought that was a bit. I always say that there's no magic behind knitwear design. I didn't take any lessons on how to design sweaters, and I don't feel that what I do is. I'm not an artist, and I don't know how to draw even, as you can see, and I can still design things that I like, and there's no magic, or there's not a clever software that does the work. It's just a calculator and just swatching, and there's nothing special about what we do behind the scenes. Yes, so let's see. Let's get this mess covered so that I can deal with that later. And finally, I don't have any finished objects to show you, but I have some acquisitions that I forgot to show you last week. So my friend Ale, I have talked about Ale many times. She is a yarn dyer. And she's also my best friend, and she lives here in Buenos Aires, about half an hour away from home, and we get together every week, probably every few days, and sometimes we do swaps. So let's suppose I design something with yarn, with a specific yarn, and I have some yarn left over. Then Ale likes to try that yarn. Usually she likes superwash worsted weight yarn that I might have left over, because here in Argentina we cannot find superwash bases. Her bases are locally made. They are custom spun for her from Argentine sheep, Argentine wool, and they are milled here in Argentina. And so she's interested in some of the superwash yarn that I have left over. So we swap my leftover skeins, and she brings me some of her yarn to work with. So last week she brought these beautiful skeins. As you can see, they go very well with today's background. For those of you who think that I've been stashing a lot, I reorganize my yarn sometimes, and I haven't been adding a lot to my stash. It's just that I have moved things around, and there are more shelves up there. You usually see only the shelf here below, and also there's more yarn downstairs. There's yarn everywhere, basically, around my house. But it's not like I've been crazy buying a lot of yarn lately. I just have these new skeins to show you. So this is Ale's worsted weight base, which is crazy soft. Her yarn is called Pura Hilados. Hilados means yarns in Spanish, so it's like pure yarns. And this is 100 grams and 190 yards of 100% Argentine superfine merino wool, not superwash. So this is a chocolate brown color. It's called Gea, as in Gia, G-E-A. This color, it doesn't have a tag. She made it for me a while ago, and it's called something like a sweet river or Mar Dulce, in reference of our Rio de la Plata river, which has these colors. This is my favorite, but she only had one of these. I wanted more. This is her fall canvas. Ale, please make me more. I need more of this. And this is honey. Beautiful yellow. So that's my new yarn that I have for this week. And I think that's all I have to say about knitting. Yes, so let's get started with that sock knit along. I wanted to also give you an update regarding my working out. A couple of journals ago I told you that I was going to start working out again with a friend who's a trainer, and I did. I've been working out with her for 3 weeks now, and I can honestly report that I see absolutely no change in my body. It just hurts a lot, and I still don't like working out, but I'm doing it. I'm not giving up. I think every time I start working out again, to be honest, I work out pretty regularly. Like, I've always done it, but during the last months I had just let go a bit, and that's why I wanted to share with you that I was thinking of going back. But I do it all the time. Every time I go back to it, I think I have to go through the process of, I think when I go back to it, I have this illusion that my body is going to change and that actually I'm going to be super hot after 2 weeks of training. And then every time I have to go through the sad process of realizing that no, you, at this age, you don't work out to look super hot. You just work out because otherwise the doctor will tell you off. But it's good, it's working out. My body hurts a lot every day, which means that it's having a repercussion in my muscles. Hopefully that will help me be a bit more in shape with my breathing capabilities when I have to go to Canada in September, because I have big hiking plans and I really want to up my breathing capacity by then. So if you have also started working out, congratulations, keep it up and let's hurt together. Next, I'd like to share with you some sewing that I've been doing and planning, and it's going to be a relatively long section. So if you are not interested in my sewing adventures, thank you for staying so far, and appreciate your being here, and see you when I come back from my ski trip. This week I've been sewing some beautiful things. I've been spending a lot of time planning also and looking at patterns for the coat that I want to make, and I've been very distracted with sewing which is good because I'm enjoying it a lot. The first thing I wanted to show you is a couple of tops that I made, baby tops, for my friend Nash, who is pregnant with her second girl. So I made two of them. I made this one in the larger, in the 4 to 5 years old size. The top has little pockets, and it has long sleeves, and it has a button in the back, so you can open it and then you close it like that. So this is the 4 to 5 years old size, and this is the smallest size, which is still super big for a newborn. It's the 6 to 12 months old size, but I think that I don't have an overlocker, so I cannot make something easily with knit fabric. I haven't yet tried my regular sewing machine with knit fabric, and I don't think that the best idea is to start sewing some knit fabric with little baby things, like newborn things. So I couldn't think of anything that I would have enjoyed putting on my newborn babies with like woven fabrics. I remember really enjoying the stretch of interlock and cotton, like knit cotton. So I decided to make them something larger for when the baby is 6 months old. I used the baby smock top by Jenny from Wiksten, or Wiksten, and I love that pattern. I just have a really hard time doing the bias binding. I think I think there's something that I'm not doing okay, because whenever I fold my bias to the right side, it doesn't get to cover properly the fabric underneath. So I think I should trim the seams before folding the bias binding, but I'm not completely sure. I'm still pleased with the result. I still think they look super cute, and I know my friend Nash will enjoy them very much. For those of you who don't know who Nash is, she is Night of a Gypsy Moon on Ravelry, and I think that her Instagram name is the same, and she's my group moderator. She's been my group moderator for many years, and I just adore her. She's one of my dearest friends. Yes, so baby top, 6 months size and 4 to 5 years size for Alana, her sister. And yes, and the fabric that I used, I bought these at the local market, which I'm going to talk about later. And they had a lot of, I have a really hard time buying prints because I tend to be a bit, I don't necessarily like the prints that we can find here in Argentina. They just don't look quite right. They look like misprinted or cheap, at least in these stores. But I saw this one and I thought it looked kind of modern and abstract, while at the same time being feminine and playful and baby style. So I am really happy that I purchased it. I can see them wearing this with some blue jeans. Yes, so to me they look modern and not just baby prints, and that's why I liked it. I bought 1 meter of this fabric and I could make both tops out of just 1 meter. Yes, I'm going to add a link to the pattern in the show notes below. And the bigger make that I made is this. You might have seen it already on Instagram or Facebook. And I talked last week how I wanted to make this dress so badly. And I just started over the weekend and I made it. I cannot tell you how much I love this dress. I cannot say enough good things about the pattern. Sorry, Marilla, if you're watching, I promise I'm not stalking you and I don't want to be a suck-up. Marilla is the designer of the pattern. I think I've been complimenting her too much. She might be a bit overwhelmed, but I was so happy with the pattern and I still can't believe that just by reading her instructions I could make this. I made it. Yes, so let's start. Let's put the dress here so that I can tell you more about it. Let's see if it stays. Sorry about that. So the dress pattern is called the Iska shirt dress, and it comes in sizes 1 to 10, I think. They don't have any relationship with US sizing or UK sizing. I think she just gives her patterns an order. So the first, size 1 is the smallest, of course, and size 10 is the biggest. My bust size is 36 inches or 90 centimeters, and this dress is size 5 of the 10, with a lot of positive ease. I think I could have easily fit a smaller size. So I could have made the size 4 for me and it would have been very good too, I think. Anyway, I'm super happy that I made this size. The dress comes with 2 views, view A and view B. View A is this one. It's a shirt dress with buttons and a placket and a collar. And view B has it's a wrap front. So like this, it has no buttons and think it doesn't have these pockets. I think it has different style of pockets, and I really like the shirt dress style for me, and I really like the pockets. When I purchased the pattern, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just knew that I had a really good experience with Marilla's instructions for my Maya top. So I decided that I just realized I could understand the way she writes and I could follow her instructions easily. So I thought it was a good idea to purchase another of her patterns for a dress, because if there were any difficult techniques involved, then I would probably be able to figure them out with her writing. And that was true. The dress has a lot of pieces, especially here for the bodies. You have one, two, three, 4 pieces, and then there's a shoulder reinforcement here that you cannot see. It's underneath, it's on the inside of the dress, but it's like a flap here to give the sweater more structure in this section. And the back has these diagonal lines in the shoulder yoke because of those reinforcements. And then you have 2 button plackets, and then you have 2 collar stands, this section of the dress, and 2 collars, I would say. So it's a lot of pieces for the bodies only. And then you have the sleeves, 2 pieces for each pocket, the front skirt and the back skirt. So cutting this out took some time and effort, and I had to be very careful. But what I did is I added Post-it notes to each of the pieces so that I could keep track of which piece was what, and also because my fabric didn't have a clear right and wrong side, so I didn't want to, or at least I wasn't seeing it, so I didn't want to realize only after a while that the fabric had a nap or that it actually had a right and wrong side. So I wanted to make sure that all the dress was made out of the same side of the fabric. And so I found that labeling all those pieces was helpful. It was my first time making a shirt, collar and collar stand and buttonholes, and I'm not going to lie, it was difficult and I had to be very precise with my stitching. Some of the seams are not perfect, but I think that overall this looks very neat. During the weekend, I was having a lot of problems keeping my stitches to look nice, and I couldn't make it work with this fabric. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. If you look closely, my stitches look kind of messy, kind of all over the place, like my tension is not okay. And here you can see it more. And of course I'm a bit of a perfectionist, maybe. I don't know if I am super perfectionist, but I might be. But the thing is that I was consciously trying to make my stitches look nice and neat, and I couldn't make it work. This is not something I realized after, and then I thought, oh, okay, I'll leave it. If I had realized afterwards, I wouldn't have bothered. It wouldn't have bothered me. It's not like it's an ugly seam. But what bothered me is that I was making a big effort in making those seams look a bit better, and I couldn't make it work. I tried everything. I even posted to Instagram asking for help or suggestions. Trust me guys, I tried everything that you can think of. I tried all of the tensions. I changed needle 100 times. All of the size needles, old needles, new needles, different threads, different quality of the threads, cotton, polyester. I adjusted the bobbin tension. I don't know what else I tried. I tried everything. And seriously, nothing was making my stitches look any different. When my friend fed the game and she took a look at the fabric, this is cheap fabric, as I usually use because I'm still learning, from our fabric district. She took a look at the fabric and she said, this is polyester, or mainly polyester fabric, and it's woven in such a way that it's messing up with your stitches. I didn't know whether to believe her. I wanted to believe her because I really wanted my machine to not be broken. I was ready to send my machine in for repair this week. But after I finished that dress, I started the baby tops. And as you can see, my stitches for the baby tops are just fine. There's nothing wrong with them, and I didn't change any of the settings in my machine between this and this. The thread that I use for these tops is the same brand and quality as I ended up using for the dress. So my only theory is that it is the fabric what caused the stitches to look like that, and perhaps I couldn't find the proper thread or needle for it, but I promise you I tried every possible kind of needle and every possible kind of thread that I had available to me. So that's it. I suppose that's what you get with this fabric, with this cheap fabric. It was my first time doing buttonholes and it was difficult, and I still don't think that I got the hang of it completely. Positioning my needle so that the center of the buttonhole was exactly what I wanted was very hard. I had to make each buttonhole maybe twice. So it took a couple of hours, I think, to make those buttonholes, but I made them. And it wasn't terrible. It just took time and patience. This dress took 2.5 days to make. If I hadn't done anything else, I probably could have done it in 2 days. Which is, for me, it's amazing. I can't believe I can make this type of dress, like a more elaborate dress with like a proper dress. When I finished this dress, I felt like I was not a beginner sewist anymore. I can make something that looks like something I would pick up from a store. And it looks well finished and well put together and much more elaborate. Actually, I think that having more seams and more structure, it's a bit more flattering for someone with my figure, because I have curves and I have a pear shape, and I feel like seams and gathers and waist, even if it's not tight at all, it's a very comfortable fitting dress. I feel like this, I feel better wearing this type of clothes rather than the trapeze dress, which is more like a plain tunicky style. I'm not saying that I'm not going to make any more of those. I love them, but I feel more well put together with something like that. So 10 thumbs up for the pattern. I give it 10 stars. The result is beautiful. I want to make many more of these dresses. Again, Marilla, sorry if I sound like a suck up. I promise I'm not trying to embarrass you with my praise, but it's a really, really great pattern. I don't feel like I'm a beginner anymore. I feel after making this dress, I feel I'm ready for anything. And so yes, thank you for this. Thank you, Marilla. Yes. So those are my finished sewing projects, and I want to share with you a work in progress that I have. So let's see, I'm going to put my dress over here. So last week I showed you also, I'm going to sit back in the center. Last week I showed you some yellow, mustard yellow fabric that I purchased to make a coat. Oh, we're over an hour now. Sorry about that. Yes, the sewing section makes the podcast very long. I hope that's okay. So I had a hard time picking a pattern, and I picked two patterns. I purchased both. I purchased the Oslo coat. I'm adding a link to that underneath. That's my favorite coat. When I look at it, I think that's my favorite shape. I want a coat that looks exactly like that, but I also feel like I like it very much in black or in that blue plaid fabric that they made it out of. And I am not absolutely certain that I would love that style in the mustard yellow. And right after I purchased that pattern, Anita suggested that I take a look to a pattern in French called Magnesium. So in French, it's manteau magnesium. And I loved it. It's only available in French, but I think that one of the many good things about having Spanish as my mother tongue is that actually I can read most of the Latin languages and understand them. So I'm pretty sure I could read a pattern in Portuguese, Italian, or French, and I could follow the instructions. But I also know some very little French from school. So I went ahead and I purchased the pattern, and I love the pattern because it comes with many options, which for some people can be overwhelming. For me, it's really fun because you learn to do all of these options. You get to read how you make those things happen. So the pattern comes in three possible lengths. I made the second length, which is like a long jacket length. This is the shorter length, this is the medium length, and the longer one comes down almost to the knees. And I decided to make a muslin or a toile for my coat using some of that cheap denim that I talked about last week from our fabric district. Our fabric district is amazing and horrible at the same time. In Argentina, there's a neighborhood called Once. You spell it as you would spell once. And it's a place where you can find lots of fabric stores, but really dirty, messy, crappy ones. There's a lot of horrible fabric and really cheap, horrible stuff. And you guys, I'm not as snob as I sound, but some stuff is really, really horrible. But also, I feel like there are a lot of mill ends, or like the ends of the cones, and there are stores who just buy that from factories and mills, and they sell it at really cheap prices. So this denim It's a really thick denim and a bit elastic. There you go. It's very sturdy. It feels like it's made for jeans, and it's in this deep blue. I already washed it for two reasons. The first of all is to avoid shrinkage after sewing, and the second is because everything you buy there is filthy. So you must wash it for hygienic reasons. This denim is made by an Argentine factory called Alpargatas. And this factory is very well known for their quality in fabrics. They make work clothes and they make their own cotton fabric, and the, the fabric lasts forever. So I could see in the cone that the cone said Alpargatas, and when I looked at the inside of the fabric there were stamps there saying Alpargatas, so it made me think that this was a really good quality sturdy fabric, and they were selling it for $1.50 a meter. But you had to take whatever meterage they had of that cone end. So I came home with 4.5 meters of denim that I had no plans for. So I thought, what better idea than using this up to make a toile for my coat. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using, as I said, the Magnesium Coat pattern. First, you have to pick, the basic pattern comes with either the single closure or double button closure. I picked the single one, and then you can pick several options for the collar, and it has many options for pockets. You can have inseam pockets or patch pockets. I'm going to do patch pockets for the jean version. You have shoulder, how do you call this in English? Like shoulder patches. Also, there are instructions to add shoulder pads and cuff tabs, martingale. It comes with a detachable hood option, folded collar, officer collar, V-neck with this. It has a zippered option. Anyway, it comes in a lot of options, and I haven't yet completely decided how I'm going to make mine. I'm also practicing top stitching. I bought this thicker thread for top stitching, and I bought it in yellow and in blue, and I think I like the blue better because it makes the coat look a bit dressier. Even if it's denim and I want it to be casual, I don't want it to look completely like a denim jacket. And then I top stitched the pleat here, and I haven't yet sewn the side seams. It's only pinned so that I could show you. So this is my work in progress. This is going to be on hold until I come home from the holidays, and it's going to have a lining so that I can practice lining my coat. I bought this fabric from the same place. I think it's also a mill end. I think it's going to look good. This is a cotton twill. It's royal blue, and it has tiny red and turquoise dots. I don't think you can see that. I also like the wrong side of the fabric because you can see all the threads used for the patterning. So I think I bought this to make a, I don't know, sometimes the fabric is so cheap you just buy it. I bought this to make a top, I think, and I was going to combine the right side and the wrong side like this, but then I thought it was perfect for lining my jacket, and that way I didn't have to buy more fabric for the lining. So that's my work in progress, and I also have some fabric acquisitions that I want to share with you. In our fabric district, you can literally find hundreds of shops, and I think that if you count those shops that have haberdashery items like buttons and ribbons and all of accessories used for clothes and bag making, I think you could say that there are 1,000 shops in the area. It's a whole neighborhood where you can buy anything from wedding dresses, supplies to party costumes. It's just so overwhelming. It's so good and so bad at the same time. So yesterday my friend Ale and I went fabric shopping a bit, and we bought some new fabrics to make dresses for ourselves for the upcoming summer. So the first shop, we first went to an area, and then we moved the car and went to a second area. So we walked around the first area, and they were basically wholesalers. They wouldn't sell any fabric by the meter, and not even 10 meters. They would sell like the complete cone of the fabric, which is like 25, 50 meters, and it was a bit too much for us, even being two of us, having 25 meters each of the same fabric in the same color. No. But then we found one store who was willing to sell us 10 meters, and we thought, okay, it's two of us. We could do 5 meters each, because most dresses that we like have a lot of fabric and folds and gathers, and a lot of the patterns that I've been looking at call for 3 or 3, even 3.5 meters of fabric. So I thought, okay, that's not so exaggerated. So we said, okay, and we started looking at their fabrics, and they didn't have the cheap stuff that they have in the other area. They obviously wholesale to fashion labels and other shops and makers, and they had stuff that we had never seen before. And as we were looking at it, the shop assistant was very nice to us, and she said, okay, I can cut you 2 different colors if you want to make up for those 10 meters. So we thought, okay. And we found linen, which is not something that you find very often here, good quality linen, and both Ale and I decided to go for it. So we found this 100% linen, white, crisp and beautiful, superb quality, not cheap quality at all. This is really, really good stuff. 100% linen to make a summer dress. Ale took 4 meters and I took 3. So I'm thinking of maybe making like a wrap long dress. It's thick-ish, so I'm hoping that I won't need to line the skirt, but I just might have to wear something like an undergarment for dresses. I don't remember how those are called. And then they had this cone of this beautiful linen for shirt making, and we think that this has a bit of viscose, but the texture of this fabric is amazing. And they didn't have a ton of it. They only had 4 meters, so I got 2.5 and Ale got, can you see the shine? It's so nice. I know you guys are used to these fabrics, but for Ale and I to be able to find these yarns in Argentina was a shock and a very nice surprise. So we think that the black one has a bit of viscose, but it still feels like a fantastic fiber. And the white one is definitely 100% linen. So the prices compared to the denim that I told you was $1.5. That was such a bargain. I still feel bad for taking it that price. This was more like, this one was $13 a meter, and this was $10 a meter. Yes, so that was like $40 for the white fabric and $25 for the black fabric. And it might not sound a lot, but it's a lot of money for us. And yes, and I feel we left the shop, we were so excited, but I felt like I started considering patterns for these two, and I felt like, oh no, what if I ruin it? What if I don't make something good enough for that fabric? Which is a feeling I don't have anymore for yarn. I tend to use all my expensive yarn freely, but this fabric was overwhelming me, and I love it so much that I want to make something really, really beautiful out of it. And I found myself blocked because of the expensiveness. So when we moved to the different neighborhood and we were back again with all the bargains, I thought, okay, I'm going to buy something cheaper to practice a bit more dressmaking. Ale and I have purchased the Roscoe dress from True Bias, and we plan to sew it together or to sew along. And I wanted something drapey. I didn't think the linen was drapey enough for that design, so that's why I purchased this. This is very, very out of my comfort zone. This is my comfort zone. This is not my comfort zone. But I really want to. I sometimes wear prints. When I see something at the store that I like, I purchase it and I wear it very happily. But when I have to purchase the fabric, I think it too much. And I don't think I'm going to wear that. What am I going to wear that with? And anyway, we were looking at their silk, or they call these silks, but they are viscose, I think, or rayon. And they had a lot of them, and I thought, okay, when I put it together with my black fabric like this, I thought, okay, I really like the way this fabric looks when I pair it with like a black jacket or black leggings. So I decided to grab 3 meters of this, and this was $5 for 3 meters. So my next project is going to be my $5 Roscoe dress, and I hope it turns out okay. I know many of you say, well, you know, your project is only as expensive or as good as your materials are, and I think it's true. But so far I've been very satisfied with my mix from my local fabric shops and I hope I'll feel comfortable wearing this fabric. It's very drapey, it's very, very drapey, and I'm hoping that when I make my Roscoe dress, it will actually look like something very classy, and I will try to forget what I paid for it, and I will try to think of how much of my time and handiwork have been invested in the dress, and I'll think of it as the most expensive dress in the world. Yes, so those are my new summer dresses over there for when summer arrives. Right now it's very cold. So I think that's it for today's journal. It's an hour and a half, I just realized, but I had a lot to share with you. I hope you guys leave me your comments, ask me any questions about the patterns that I've been talking about, whether they are knitting or sewing patterns. I'm super happy to hear from you, and if I forget to mention any details of what I'm using, or if you're interested in knowing where these shops are or how to visit, just drop me a message here on YouTube or anywhere, and I'll do my best to reply. Thank you again for being here with me today, and see you next week when I come back. Bye!